That clock's always slow, by the way.
Yeah, we're right on.
No, I'm right on 7, yeah.
So they know. Well, do you know if Derek Wright's gonna be here or? Derek Wright, do you know if he's gonna be here?
You know, honestly, I didn't hear from anyone one way or the other.
This one sure is.
It is not confidential.
Well, it looks to me like 7 o'clock. Are you ready, Bart? Okay. All right, it's 7 o'clock, so we will call to order the Visual Resources Review Board meeting for the town of Farragut for July 2021. Hard to believe it's already July. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the June 2021 meeting. So is there any comments or questions from the board related to those minutes? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion on the minutes?
I'll move for approval.
Alderman Pinchot motions to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Moore seconds. So we need to call a vote. If you wouldn't mind do that, Bart.
Okay. Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Chairman Lehman,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Pinchot,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe,
Yes.
and that's everyone.
All right, and before we get into item number 2, the next thing I want to do is welcome one of our new members. One new member is not able to be with us tonight, but Miss Anas Leilani, who is our student representative and a student at Farragut High School.
Yes.
And this is her first meeting, and so we want to welcome you tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. As we go through the meeting tonight, we'll give everyone will have opportunity on all the items, as you may have noticed last time, to ask questions or make comments, and feel free to do so as well. As you also know, you cannot vote, but you can be a part of the conversation. So, all right. Well, I guess you could vote, it just wouldn't be counted. All right, so with that, let's move down to the ground-mounted sign applications. And the first one tonight is Autism in Motion, the tenant panel sign for 11121 Kingston Pike. So,
This is a simple tenant panel request. This is their second design. They cleaned it up a bit. The first one wasn't very legible, but they, and actually the client had asked the sign designer to change it, because when they saw it, the color was, was really hard to see on the background and all. So this is what they came up with. It's a pretty simple sign. It appears to be legible. This is, staff can recommend approval of it.
all right, sounds good. Questions or comments for staff? We'll start with Mr. Armstrong.
No questions.
Ms. Moore?
No questions. Pretty straightforward.
Ms. Stowe?
Pretty straightforward. It looks good.
All right. Alderman Pinchot?
I'll pass.
All right, Ms. Leilani?
No questions.
All right, seems like it is pretty straightforward. So with that, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve as is.
A motion to approve by Mr. Armstrong. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Stowe. So with that, if you would call the vote, please.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Chairman Lehman,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Pinchot,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe,
Yes.
and I think that's everyone.
All right. So the next item tonight is the Old Stage Farm Subdivision sign located off of Old Stage Road.
Okay. This is a subdivision entrance sign for a new subdivision going in off Old Stage Road. It's actually built. You've probably seen it if you've driven past there. It's actually 2 signs, which is allowed. They're both going to be very small at each corner. And there's some additional fencing detail, but it's not necessarily part of the sign that will extend down along Old Stage Road. It's all in an easement.
Can you go back to the sign?
I actually haven't got to the sign yet.
I thought it was
Yeah,
first.
yeah. I switched the order on the PowerPoint
Oh.
because I thought it would it would be easier to see this way.
Okay.
You know, the landscaping is shown there in the right-hand corner. It's compliant. It's part of a larger landscaping plan. The sign structure itself will be this, which is a brick column, a wood post on top of it with a support arm, and then a swinging sign that's routed material. It's, again, you know, brick and wood is what they're proposing. And then the sign itself will be that. And like I said, there'll be, you know, sort of mirror images of one another on each corner.
Is the sign going to be on both sides, or is it just one-sided?
You know, honestly, I'm not sure. The sign, the way it's oriented, I don't think you could see it from the internal, so it may just be on one side.
That's what I was thinking. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. And it's located within an easement that was platted as part of the subdivision, so you can see here, it's within an easement, and it's behind the 10-foot utility and drainage easements. One of staff's recommendations on this is that they do an as-built survey to just show that they get it in there, because it's fairly tight, the area they have in between the utility and drainage easement that they have to keep it out of, and the sign easement that they platted for. And the sign easement, again, extends across the entire front, because those are individual lots, and the HOA will be maintaining the fence that's connected and will run along down that front line along Old Stage. So it complies with all our standards in terms of height and size. It's located in an easement, like I said. It's behind the utility and drainage easement. The landscaping, you can see there, is compliant. Staff can recommend approval, subject to an as-built survey being required just to document, once they get it built, that they got it in the right place.
All right. Are there any other questions for staff? Ms. Moore, do you have anything?
I just have a question. I don't know that we've ever seen one where they've done two on each side like that, so one on each side of the entrance. Do the sizes you just add them together, and as long as they fall
Yeah.
within the, okay.
Yep. There's one other, but I can't think of which one it was, but I've seen, or at least someone proposed it. Maybe they didn't follow through, but I think there's another one that has them on both corners like that. I'm just drawing a blank, but yeah, you're allowed a total of 40 feet, but you can divide it between two.
Okay.
And that's the actual sign and not the structure. So, in this case, it's actually a very small sign. It's just 20 inches by 26 inches. So they're well under the limit.
Yeah. I don't have any other questions.
Ms. Stowe, do you have any questions?
Did you say the subdivision is already built?
Mm-mm.
What?
The road's cut in.
No, the subdivision's in.
Well, one house is being
Yeah,
built. The house-
yeah.
It's-
When I say subdivision, I mean the platting of the
Yeah,
lots and the
yeah.
road, yeah.
The infrastructure's in.
Yeah.
No, I have no other questions.
Okay. Anything else, Alderman Pinchot?
I have none.
Mr. Armstrong?
No comment.
All right. Ms. Leilani?
No questions.
It looks to me like it's in good order. So with that, do we have a motion?
I'll move for approval with the subject to a survey being required.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Alderman Pinchot. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Armstrong. So if you would, please call the vote.
Okay. Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Chairman Lehman,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Pinchot,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe,
Yes.
and that's it. It passes.
Okay. Moving down to the next sign, which is the Preserve at Turkey Creek Subdivision sign, which is located off of Turkey Creek Road. So-
Okay. This is also a permanent subdivision entrance sign. It's similar to what you looked at last month, in that you're being asked to both look at the sign itself and also the fact that they are making a request to locate the sign in the public road right away. They have some constraints on that site with respects to an existing sewer line easement and some topography and some grading issues. So they want to use the road right away. This is the new subdivision that's being platted there off of Turkey Creek Road. If you've driven down there, you've probably seen it. It's been under construction for a little while now. And they're proposing to put it there in that, down there near the entrance on the east side of the entrance road. But again, it will be within the road right away. It's projected to be 4.5 feet from the curb, in from the curb. So, under the sign ordinance, that is, a possibility, but as I explained last meeting, it has to, the streetscape plan and the sign's location has to be recommended to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen by the Planning Commission, by this board, and then it will be on the next Board of Mayor and Aldermen's agenda as well for consideration. So that's the location that they're proposing it for. You can see some of the landscaping there, for the sign on the bottom image. The sign itself is actually fairly small on a large column. So again, we measure the sign box, so it's not a large sign. The structure itself is a little larger, but that's fine. You can see a little more detail on the landscaping there in the top left-hand corner of this image. It more than exceeds our standard. Going back a slide. Well, I don't have one, but it is part of a larger streetscaping plan, which is part of the the requirement for putting it in the right of way. So staff can recommend in favor of it, subject to ultimately, and we'll be making these recommendations to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen as well, a as-built survey to document where in the right-of-way it actually gets located, ensuring that the location doesn't conflict with any utility lines that might be running under, that area of the right-of-way. I did check the preliminary subdivision plat, and there were none planned. So we just, we'll have to get it verified that there were none installed. And then there'll need to be some sort of maintenance agreement put in place between the development's HOA and the town regarding ongoing maintenance and liability for the sign and all the landscaping in there. So it's pretty much the same thing that we discussed for the Fox Den subdivision at the last board meeting, where they were also making a request for locating in the right of way. So at the last meeting, you opted to do two separate motions on this type of request. One was to recommend the plan and the right of way location to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and then the second motion was to actually approve the sign in a similar manner that you do all ground signs. So this is what's being proposed. This is the location again. This shows a little closer. It's going to be about 4.5 feet from, is that front of curb or back of curb? Back of curb. And have two representatives here from the development that are making a request. And they did submit a letter to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen making the request and also justifying it. And there were, a number of justifications for putting it in the right of way.
All right, so I think, as you said, we did 2 votes last month on a very similar request, and I think that probably is appropriate again this time. So setting the stage there, any other questions, comments for staff? Ms. Stowe, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
Is this where that house is that sits on?
That is part of the issue. There is a driveway. to the
Is that
left.
house gonna stay there?
The house is staying. and the driveway connection is part of the reason we have to locate the sign in the very small
Okay.
spot. So
I
you
thought
are
they
all
had-
over it.
I thought they had that for sale, the house,
It was just the acreage.
just the
behind it. They wanted
acreage.
to preserve
Oh,
the property.
Yeah.
okay.
So the neighbor had actually took set back behind it.
There will be some screening to try to give the home some privacy.
Okay. Is there gonna be a light? Is this, if this is into the entrance, is there gonna be a light
There
on
is a
this?
single LED uplight, just one single one. You see the, hard to point from down here, but right in front.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got
It's just
it.
a single, if y'all can't tell, they're kind of going for a minimal approach on this with a less minimal column.
Okay.
It's right over here.
Do you know the price range you're gonna have for these homes?
The homes will probably be in the $800,000 to $900,000
Is that right?
range.
I live in Sheffield, so, you know, I pass it every day,
Sure.
but I just thought that house probably was part of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
that, there is open space HOA property here in this area, but again, they can't back up too far and get into that because there's an existing sewer line that runs down through there and there's an easement on it, and they can't be in that easement. And they also can't be in the platted, utility and drainage easements on the front either. So there would be a really narrow spot, about 2 feet, that they could get it in.
A flowage easement,
Yeah.
which to get landscaping behind the column before the flowage easement really makes this the only spot.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Did that house own that property?
They did.
I'm surprised then that they would
She
wanna,
had a lot of goats.
okay.
She had a lot of goats back there. I met her. She was a nice lady.
Yeah.
A lot of goats.
Okay. Alderman Pinchot, you have questions, comments?
I just want to make sure I understand. Last time we met and had a similar situation like this, we had two subject twos. Does the maintenance agreement come under the signage?
Well, the maintenance agreement, I would recommend that you recommend that to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen as part
So
of
that comes
your-
under the right-of-way
Yeah,
part?
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so the signage is one, the maintenance and right-of-way is the second subject two. Instead of having three, we're having two. We're combining maintenance and right-of-way with as one subject two. Is that what you're saying?
I would recommend for if the board's inclined to make a motion to recommend the signage plan and the use of the right-of-way to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, one of the subject twos that I'd recommend that you recommend to them is that there be a maintenance
I
and
agree.
liability agreement put in place.
Well, I'm just saying, should we make this three subject twos instead of, I'm a little confused as where the maintenance agreement's going to fall into this.
Well, the maintenance agreement would be part of the recommendation on the right-of-way use.
It
Because it's
seems
gonna
to make
be-
sense. That
yeah.
goes with the right-of-way
Yeah.
because we're making a recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, so those two would go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Just
the
wanna make
sign
sure.
itself is
And-
separately approved.
And potentially the survey location, because it's going to be in the town's right-of-way, so the town should know exactly where it is.
Okay.
So the survey location needs to be a subject to the sign itself, but it also needs to go with the right-of-way
Well,
recommendation.
Well,
That's right.
normally we require the survey to make sure the sign meets setbacks.
Correct.
In this case, it's not even going to be on private property. It's going to be in the right-of-way. So the setbacks aren't really an issue. We just, from a staff perspective, we feel that if the town's going to allow it to be in their public road right-of-way, they should have a survey to document where exactly it is.
So everything rolls into the right-of-way then,
Yeah,
really, except for the sign approval itself, but the
yeah.
survey rolls into that too.
Yep.
Great question. Did you have other questions or?
No, I just want to make sure we were straight on.
Yeah, that's great.
Really, all the subject twos that I noted should go along with the right-of-way usage.
Okay.
The location within the right-of-way, they're all related to the location within the right-of-way.
Okay. All right. Mr. Armstrong.
I think it's a beautiful structure. It's really nice. Yeah, no other comments.
Okay. Ms. Moore?
I just have a further question on the maintenance agreements, which I didn't think about last time, just because I think of where we talked about them. But on this one being such a small neighborhood, who knows if there would be a homeowners association or what, but, maintenance agreements in neighborhoods, how are those managed? Is that up to the, because, once the neighborhood is built, it's handed over
Yeah.
normally, so,
Yeah, normally, most things are handled by an HOA, and there will be one in this development.
okay, so
But,
that's, okay.
But this, again, this is kind of unique in that, what staff is recommending is that the town of Farragut, since this structure and all landscaping is going to be in the public road right away, ensures that it's very clear that the town's not going to be responsible for maintaining the structure or any of the landscaping or have any liability for it, that the private development's going to have those responsibilities. Normally these things are back on a HOA lot or on an easement that's controlled by the HOA, and it's private property, and a private HOA is responsible for maintaining their own private property. In this case, they're putting the structure on the public's right of way, so.
And that's my question, kind of
Yeah.
like a business, because normally we have more relationships with businesses and business signs that we're approving, and then holding them accountable for how they look and the landscaping,
Yeah.
et cetera. So if this is on Town of Farragut, we want to be sure that that continues on, that it's not a builder and then it's handed over, but there's no one to really hold that maintenance agreement going forward. But if there's an HOA, I think that continues
Yeah.
that maintenance agreement. So I think that that's handled. But that's really my only question. I think it's a great-looking sign, landscaping plan.
It's also low maintenance, by the way.
Yeah.
It's
What-
durable materials for that very reason. It's not wood. It won't decompose in a couple of years.
It's
One-
not wood.
No, it's brick.
Yeah, brick and,
The-
brick part is metal roof.
Metal roof, that's, okay, yeah.
And just for clarity, once this gets to the Board of Mayor and Alderman level, that agreement will have to be looked at and worked out with the town attorney to make sure that, the right things are in place for that maintenance agreement.
Great.
I think they did it with me already, so we should probably see it.
That's all I have.
That's all? I'm not sure I saw it. Maybe it was on there and I missed it, but what you said earlier, so it's in the public right of way, so it's moved a little closer to the street than a normal sign. It's a very substantial structure. Where's the visibility portion of this? Is there, when a small car pulls up there,
Okay.
will they be able to see?
Yeah, if you look here, it's quite a ways back from the actual intersection
Okay.
of the road. So if you.
So when you were saying 4.5 feet earlier, you didn't mean from the,
That's just back from the edge of the curb.
okay,
The residential roadway. So
Yeah.
to be clear, it's not the Turkey Creek Road right away that's the issue, it's this neighborhood's right away.
okay, that's where I got confused.
It's really, the
Okay.
entry is so pinched in that this is sort of just,
And we purposefully kept it out of the Turkey Creek right of way, just because our
Yeah.
engineer commented on higher speeds on that road and wanting to keep the structure further away from Turkey Creek. And so we placed it further back, but then had to hug the new road, which is Twenty Turtle Lane, that goes into the subdivision. So it's hugging the curve of the new road going into the subdivision.
Okay, that's what I
On
wanted to
here,
clarify.
this is the edge of pavement of Turkey Creek, and then here's the curbing going up into the development, and I'm having to do this with the trackpad.
No, you're
And
good.
then, so you're clean up to here before you get to the sign. And then
Okay.
the 4 foot difference was basically from edge of curb here into the sign, the 4.5 feet.
Okay. Well, I heard the comment. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I understood what you all were talking about.
Yeah, I should have been clear on that.
So when you pull up to Turkey Creek, there's going to be plenty of visibility, is what you're saying, in both directions to be able to see, because obviously with speeds on that road, you need that visibility.
Yeah.
So,
And it's on the you know, it's on the east side. So, you know, a car coming out of the development, you know, is going to pull down and be past it looking to the east, and then, you know, there'll be nothing obscuring it to the west.
You can see the site triangles are actually also why it's where it is.
Yeah.
If you look at the overall plan, it's kind of hard to see at this scale, but there are two site triangle issues, which kind of made this, again, the only envelope.
But that's a good point, that in terms of,
Okay. You didn't talk earlier, Bart, about the lighting. As we asked, there was just lighting there. Does that meet the town standards? A lot of times you have to work with the
yeah.
developer on that, so it's already checks out.
Yeah, we'll go out and check it in the field when it gets installed, but, you know, but here is a cut sheet on the light that they're putting in, so it'll be a shielded light, and they just have to orient the light so that, you know, the light source is not visible from the, you know, from the street, so it'll, you know, they'll just have to point it up and it's partially shielded, and that'll work out.
Okay. Is it going to be an automatic on at dusk, off at dawn kind of thing? Okay. All right. I don't think I have any other questions. Did you have any, Miss Lalani? Okay. Did anybody else? All right. So we're going to do two different votes. The first vote will be related to the right-of-way question, whether to send you know, our recommendation for approval of placing the sign in the right-of-way along with the subject to survey requirement and the maintenance agreement. So that will be vote one.
And making sure that, and the applicant just verifying that there are no utility lines under it.
Utility lines, okay.
Yeah. Actually, you can attach those subject tos to both motions. You know, it won't hurt to have it on the sign itself.
Okay, so motion one is related to making the approval or recommendation for approval to the Board of Mayor and Alderman for placing it in the town right of way with the subject to of the survey, the maintenance, and making sure there's no utilities.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, no conflicts between
No conflicts
utilities and
with
the sign.
utilities.
Yeah.
All right, so for that vote number one, do we have a motion on that vote?
I'll move for approval with the staff subject to's included.
We have a motion. Alderman Pinchot, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Moore. So if you would, please call the vote.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
On this first one, are we yes or no to move it to Mayor, Alderman? Move it to, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, sir.
all right.
Yeah. Yeah, with a recommendation.
Yes, okay.
Recommendation, remember.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Chairman Lehman,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Pinchot,
Yes.
and Ms. Stowe.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so vote number two is on the sign itself. And I guess we're going to do the survey, maintenance, utility, I mean, we're going
Might
to
as
subject
well.
to
Yeah,
that
I
to
could
that as
just-
well,
I'll
okay?
just put 'em in.
So for the sign itself, do we have a motion?
I'll move for approval of the sign with the subject to's.
I'll second.
All right, a motion by Alderman Pinchot and a second by Mr. Armstrong. So please call vote.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Chairman Lehman,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Pinchot,
Yes.
and Ms. Stowe.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
We need to get people to stop putting these in the right of way. It gets complicated.
Makes it hard on us.
Process y'all can tell, this was a kind of confusing one, so thank y'all very much.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Bart.
Take care.
All right, so with that, we'll move down to the landscape plan applications. And so the first one is for Old Stage Farm Subdivision. We saw
Okay.
the sign earlier, now we're going to be looking at the landscaping.
Yeah, they really use the same landscape plan for the sign and the landscape plan. I tried to get them to separate it so there'd be a little more room on the sheets. And this is actually a slightly different sheet than you saw for the actual sign. This is only because the drawing for the landscaping is a little bit larger on this, but The landscaping elements that you're looking at in terms of required landscaping here are the detention basin. And they had some additional replacement trees that they needed to account for, and they're planting those along the walking trail extension that runs there just to the, the top part of the detention basin, which would, I guess, be east. But let me see if I can get. The other trees there along the street are part of their streetscaping plan, and the landscaping for the sign you've already approved as part of the sign. So the walking trail extension runs along here. It goes back, it stubs out so that it could be connected into the adjoining subdivision if needed. So they planted some of their required replacement trees along that trail. It's compliant in terms of the number of trees they have planted around the detention basin. They actually have almost all of that is a flowering variety, so they're way over their requirement for flowering species for a detention basin. And then they have an assortment of trees that they're, sort of doing a mix along the trail there. But I don't think I had any subject twos on that. No. So staff can just recommend approval of that.
Okay. Questions for staff? Alderman Pinchot?
I've got a question. The top left, that first lot, in the top left corner, that's 1, and then 2's beside it, then 3, and then 4 is the detention pond, 5 is the bottom right corner. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, is that right?
Yeah, okay.
One,
There was
two,
a large
three.
sinkhole in this development, and so basically, there's a lot here, there's a lot here,
Right,
there's a lot here.
right,
Then there's this large lot here that's the detention basin.
right.
There's a lot that's got a driveway that
That's right there, that's my question.
Then there's a lot back here, but its
That-
access runs up like this.
That's my question, that is very steep right there. I don't know how they're gonna get a driveway back there. I guess you all have
Yeah,
reviewed it, and,
I think that. And then there's another lot here that accesses here and comes back
Right.
here to a building site. And then a lot here and a lot here. This has all been approved by the planning commission
Okay.
already. Yep.
that is so steep, I don't know how you're gonna get a driveway back there. And then so you got the detention basin in top right corner, and then you've got the
Yeah,
sinkhole
yeah.
right there.
Yeah, the sinkhole's here, and that's an open space area. And then the detention basin back in here, which is pretty much, all of this.
Right.
And then,
I don't have any other questions, I was just curious. I know it's a long driveway and it's awfully steep, it drops down to that detention pond pretty
Good
quick.
question. I was wondering the same thing, so.
You
Okay.
can't move it over much, because on the other side, you got the sinkhole.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't want to buy that house.
That's
I'd be a
kind
little
of scary
leery
for it to
of
be that
yeah,
close, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Armstrong, you have any questions?
No questions.
Ms. Moore?
I actually have a question, where exactly this is on Old Stage Road?
What's that?
Where exactly this is on Old Stage Road?
There's 2 entrances to Fort West Subdivision. It's right in between the
In
two
between the two,
entrances.
yeah.
there used to be an old White House that was on the property.
Okay, I know where it is. So then, on that same conversation of that driveway, in Lot 7 then, that's also a driveway going back? So they're basically taking 2 driveways around the sinkhole?
Yes.
And does it go up as well?
They'll be able to skirt the contours to some extent and then build back. they'll be able to come in here and run in between the contour lines, so this is actually fairly flat because you're running with the contour, and then they'll build back in here somewhere. And then this one, I forget exactly how it runs, but they felt like they could get on it. There's a little bit of drop here, but, they could come in and swing, and then, they can get back in here and again run on contour and then get back to a building site. I mean, the person who did the subdivision is also a builder, so I'm assuming he felt like he could get houses on it.
So I also see on the side of that lot 7, they've added 3 trees. Is that backing up to another single house? Or is that
I think there's
part
a-
of Fort West, like all around both sides, like all around this neighborhood?
Do you see where the plant schedule is in the bottom left? Somebody bought that lot and built a house there. Okay? Everything else around this property is Fort West. To the right is that's the green space for Fort West, but there's homes on the north side and on the south side, or east and west. I'm not sure how this is laid out actually, but there are homes around most of it.
So on I guess the way that we're looking at this, on the right-hand side of lot 6, there's already green space there, so that's probably why there's no trees being added up on
Yeah.
that side of it then? Okay. And then on the bottom part of lot 6 and 7, there's no trees being added there? Would there be residential already there? Like, is that backing up to residential?
You know whose house is behind 7? Is Cindy Holyfield. It's her house, right behind 7.
And there were no buffers required for this development, so there's no buffering landscaping required, but
Okay. Yeah, it just looks like they're putting it on lot 7 right there. They're buffering it. So I just was wondering why, if they're putting that right in the middle of a neighborhood, if they're not buffering kind of all the way
yeah.
around?
Yeah, I don't recall exactly what trees were in there, but I think part of it is that they had a certain number of replacement trees that they had to put in too, and they're just, they're putting some in some places that were maybe a little thin, or they just wanted to add some, so.
Okay. Okay. That's really my only question.
Okay. Ms. Stowe?
No, I pass.
So, why do you think they're not putting any trees around the sinkhole area? I mean, not like in it, but just kind of around it.
There actually are some trees in the sinkhole area.
Oh, okay. So it's just kind of already there.
Yeah.
So it's already kind of filled up. So that'll be an area that has.
Yeah, green space on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, it shows down in the bottom left corner, existing trees, what's that say? I can't read that on the
Yeah, what they did is
To
they.
remain.
Yeah.
remaining.
I
Why
actually
aren't they
think
showing,
there's
why aren't they
3.
showing the other trees, if they're there, that are gonna be remaining? Makes it look, like you said, that there's,
I actually think those 3 right there are existing trees to remain, but they may be clearing out the rest. Well, they've put an X on the ones they're taking out.
right, I'm a little confused by that too.
Well, on their tree preservation plans, when they do that, like in the sinkhole area, that's a environmentally sensitive area, and they can't clear it anyway, so they typically don't account for trees that they're both either removing or saving as part of the development, because the way the tree preservation ordinance is set up is within their limits of disturbance, if they're saving trees, they get credit for it. And then the trees that they're removing, they have to account for, and they can offset. But some, if there's areas of tree cover that they're not going anywhere near, and it wasn't going to be part of the disturbance anyway, they don't inventory them, because they neither can count them for saved trees or for either for credits or losses. So it can be deceptive, because sometimes the trees being saved are actually the trees they're asking for credit on the tree preservation plan that went to the planning commission, as part of the subdivision process, as going through the preliminary plating process. It's not that, the landscape plan, honestly, they only have to show the ones that they're asking, when they're showing that we're saving these for credit and we're taking these out. But there can be other areas, on some of the larger open space developments, for instance, or, that we see, or even some of the site plans when we see landscaping, there can be a lot more of that site that has trees on it. It's just that it was an area beyond the limits of disturbance, so they didn't even inventory it. So,
Okay,
yeah, it can be a little deceptive that way, I guess.
okay. Well, in terms of these trees that we're talking about there on Lot 7, it looks like the 3. So you're saying those are probably 3 that are just there, that they've marked to remain. Are those part of their required trees?
No, in fact, the only trees that you're reviewing for required trees are the trees they're putting around the detention basin, and then the trees there along the walking trail. And they're just accounting for some of their required trees, because some of the other ones that they put in are along the street, and that was approved by the planning commission as part of the streetscaping plan. So you're really just looking at the detention basin, and then that area along the walking trail in terms of the required landscaping plan. Because again, we're just looking at what they're required to do under the landscaping ordinance. There's additional landscaping sometimes that's part of a subdivision as part of the streetscaping that they do that doesn't come before you all. It's dealt with by the planning commission as part of the preliminary plat and final plat. So again, it can be a little confusing that way, because on some of these subdivisions now, the landscape architects or the designers, they're just doing one plan, and it shows the streetscaping and the detention basin elements, and you're really just looking at the detention basin elements. Or if there had been a buffer required here, you'd also be looking at the landscaping and the buffering, but it might all be on one sheet. And
That is confusing.
yeah,
Is there some way that going forward we can,
well, I mean, we could ask the designer to prepare different sheets.
well, no, I just
You know.
don't have to do that, but maybe just the way they're marked or labeled or something, so that we know what we're reviewing and what planning commission is reviewing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I was under the impression we were reviewing everything on here.
Yeah, I tried to note that in the write-up, that you were really looking at the detention basin and the required replacement trees along the walking trail, but I'll try to be clear. I mean, I'm not sure how they could do that unless they did a separate sheet that was just the things that you were looking at. Because, I mean, if they start trying to shade them differently or something like that, it's going to even get more, on some plans it might be clearer, on others it could be messier.
I can see your last sentence there. The plan also depicts streetscape plantings and entrance signs, which are approved separately. Maybe you should put by the planning
Okay.
commission or something.
Yeah.
I just overlooked it. I read it and
Yeah. Easy enough to
Over.
do. Okay. Mr. Wright has joined us. Do you have any, I know you've rushed in, but do you have any comments or questions about this one that you?
I don't on this one. It sounds good. I do apologize for my tardiness. We had to push a football scrimmage a little later tonight due to the heat. So, but no, I'm listening along, and it sounds good to me. I'll pass on this.
All right, sure.
Thank you.
Ms. Lalani, any questions or comments from you?
I do not.
All right. If there's no further questions or comments, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, motion approved by Ms. Moore. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Pinchuk. If you would, please call the vote.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe,
Yes.
and Mr. Wright.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, motion carries. So the last item on the agenda is also a landscape plan. It's for the Moses Water Sports, which will be located at 11470 Outlet Drive, part of the new developments that are going along Outlet Drive. So here we go.
Okay. This is a landscape plan for a development that's, again, going in there off on Outlet Drive. It's on the same side of the Outlet Drive as Topgolf. It's a lot or two, I think it's two lots to the west of the Topgolf site. There are a couple of sinkholes on this property. In fact, that entire front area that's not to be disturbed, it's just shown with the scalloped line, that's existing tree cover that has to remain because that entire area is a sinkhole. The property immediately to the east has also got some very large sinkholes on it. So they're really coming in there. Their entrance to the development there is on the west edge of the property. It snakes up around the sinkhole and then goes to the area that they could develop back in behind it. So this is going to be a boat sales and service type facility, and the landscape plan is fairly simple for it. Their only parking lot is up here at the front. The rest of it is going to be outdoor storage and for, the boats and all. So the parking area is really just up in here and then a little bit over in here. So they do have shade trees within the called for distance of the parking spaces. The other shade trees they're mostly putting around the periphery of the development or of the parking and storage, boat storage areas. They had a certain number to put in. That's what they're showing. Our recommendation on this would be to approve it subject to, they need to substitute a different species for 3 eastern red cedars that they were calling out as shade trees. They won't grow large enough to meet our shade tree requirement. They're asking for you to substitute a different type of cedar and some southern magnolia for the shade trees that are listed on our preferred list. Both the trees that they're proposing will meet the requirement for a shade tree, so it's reasonable for you all to allow that. And then one of the cedars that they're proposing that is an okay tree if you approve it is located up here, and it needs to be moved a little bit closer to the improved surfaces that they're putting in, because under the requirements, shade trees have to be within 50 feet of a improved surface that they're being counted against. So, subject to substituting a qualifying species for the 3 eastern red cedars, which are just down here, and moving that one tree up there that's on the up here at the far north of the site down to get a little closer to the boat storage area. We can recommend approval of it.
Art, can you address why the the 2 trees are not listed on our allowed list?
We have a preferred list that breaks out, a number of different trees, and they're just not listed as qualifying shade trees, but our ordinance, allows the board to substitute other trees if they would, meet the parameters for a shade tree, and our parameters for a qualifying shade tree is a tree that's going to attain a height of at least 30 feet and a crown spread of at least 30 feet. We looked at that, Mark and I looked at that, and the trees they're proposing would fall within those parameters, so the VRB could allow those to be. I mean, we don't have every conceivable tree listed on that list. So,
I guess what I'm what I'm asking is the cedar and the magnolia that are not on the list. Do you see any issue with those trees in the town? Is there any kind of problem,
No, not that.
any
not that I'm
bad
aware of.
history of those trees in the town, or anything else that you and Mark are aware of?
I mean, magnolias are messy, but, where they're putting them, that's not going to be a problem. So,
Okay.
but apart from that, no, it's,
All right. So it seems reasonable to allow that substitution.
yeah. I mean, they, they'll meet the growth characteristics that you require for a shade tree, and it's just something we don't have listed, but that seems to be what they want to use, and if it'll meet the parameters, then there's no objections to them.
And then on the eastern red cedar that needs to be substituted.
Something that's going to grow a little larger. I mean, the red cedar will probably get tall enough, but not enough spread to really qualify. So we didn't want to.
Well, are you, just to clarify there, are you asking us to give them a tree recommendation, or are they to give a tree recommendation after we vote? But then, what if they come back with a tree that's not on our list?
Well,
How do we do
they
that?
should pick one on our list.
I agree. I agree. Should that be part of the motion, to pick one on the list?
yeah, or one of the ones that you've already allowed the substitution for.
Okay.
Would be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, other questions, comments for staff? Mr. Armstrong?
Yeah, I actually have two questions, believe it or not, on a landscaping thing.
Sure,
Don't-
sure.
Don't faint, folks. All right, so, am I correct that this property is surrounded by large trees?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. We have to have so many trees for mandated by our policy? Okay. All right. It just seems odd to me that we're surrounded by trees and we're adding trees for shade. But now, if those trees all died, then the property wouldn't have any shade. Okay,
I guess you just sort of ignore the ones around it for the purpose of the. is that
I
what you're supposed
suppose.
to do?
Just
Well,
curious.
I'm asking, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
we were having this discussion, before the meeting, that, the ordinance has different layers of requirement. And one of the requirements is, one shade tree for every 2,500 square feet of improved surface. So that would be buildings, parking lots, and all that kind of thing.
Got it.
And there are other sites that have, still have tree cover on them for part of the site. And, this has a lot of tree cover on it, but yeah. And then there's a requirement for the trees, a certain number, or, they had to put a few trees in there around the actual parking spaces to get, to meet that requirement. But yeah, there's a lot of tree cover on here. But the thing is they couldn't count a lot of the trees that they're not disturbing because they're in a environmentally sensitive area.
Gotcha.
Which is a sinkhole, and they can't disturb that anyway. So, yes, it's on the site, but from the standpoint of from tree crediting, they can't, they couldn't count that because they wouldn't be able to develop in that area anyway.
Gotcha. All right, understandable. Second question is not really landscaping, it's a general question. When you're driving west to east on this road, there is a rise.
Yep.
I'm assuming Topgolf's entrance is at the top of that rise. I'm curious how far down the hill this entrance is, because there's some side issues, there's going to be some side issues, because you're not going to be able, like, you're going towards Campbell Station, you pull out of a property, Topgolf or this property, you are not going to be able to see to your east on some of these lots. I was just curious where this one
Yeah, it depends on where it
fell.
is, yeah.
Right. If
Oh,
it's at
yeah.
the bottom of the hill, I
Yeah.
guess I'm asking. I'm just curious about that. You can't.
They're, I can't think exactly where it comes out there
Okay.
on that topography. I know, when they're citing driveways as part of the planning commission
Sure.
process, that, the town engineering staff, looks at
Gotcha.
site distance. At the same time, the access to this particular site is really restricted by the sinkhole.
Got
You
it.
know, I mean, they couldn't really get their driveway in. I mean, in fact, you know, the way they're bringing it in here, it's sort of, it's a little serpentine there, you know, when it first comes in.
Yeah.
It's because they're swinging around the sinkhole because they have to stay out of that.
Got it. Well, the only reason I ask is prior to when I used to drive to work, it's been a year and a half, I went this way every single day, and I know cars go rather fast on this road.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious. So anyway, thank you.
All right, Ms. Moore?
I just have a question about the signage. So if there's the sinkhole issues and heavy trees on both sides with incline, have they said anything about a sign? Is there a place for a sign? Is there enough room for a sign, like ground-mounted sign at the road?
They've not proposed one yet. I'm assuming that they'll want to put a ground-mounted sign down there near the entrance to Outlet Drive. You know, signage, they'll probably put something on their building, but it's probably not going to be particularly effective because, you know, the visibility of the site is not going to be great from really either from the interstate or from Outlet Drive because there's you know, quite a bit of tree cover on both sides.
Okay,
So-
is there enough room there to put a sign
Well, I mean, they've
with the
got,
sinkholes and?
yeah, the scalloped line is really their stay out of line from the standpoint of, you know, the sinkholes and the tree cover. So, you know, whoops, uh-oh. That's not good at all. Let's start that again. So. Oh. Okay.
So it's just inside that scalloped line, not,
Yeah, basically, yeah, they got to stay out of this area and then, you know, which is why you can see the way they put their improvements in. And then there's more down here they have to stay out of as well. And then they get over into the road right away. So I would think that they, you know, will be looking to put a sign in up, you know, over in here or over in here at some point.
Where you,
Or either over on this
Yeah,
side
yeah.
or over in here. And again, there is, you know, there are some sight distance issues they'll have to deal with on where they can, you know, get visibility on the sign, because it runs up. You know, there's some topography that goes up and then drops down.
I think this property butts Buddy Gregg's, right? Isn't it right
Yeah,
up next
yeah,
to it?
Yeah, right on the.
So Randy, what
on
you're
the
asking,
western
how
side.
far up the road is the hill from Buddy Gregg's?
Not far, but I'm sure this is probably fine. It's in a lower area, but there is a gradual rise just past Buddy Gregg. You don't realize it's a pretty good rise. I think.
It kind of turns and then it
does,
starts, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
Like
got-
you go
yeah.
through there and then it starts going.
well, the U.F. Snyder Road and those apartments coming out right there
Yeah.
too as it turns, so.
I'm sure it'll be
it's a
fine.
pretty.
So if this
Yeah.
is beside Buddy Gregg, the biggest issue is going to be there like rush hour times, right? Doesn't it really back up there?
Yes.
And you turn it on to Campbell Station?
Yes, it does.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's
it really
This
does.
helped, but
It's about-
Maybe it'll give people a chance to look and notice the business in there. I
Well, there you
suppose.
go. There
But-
you go.
But yeah, you know, they've been working on this site, just trying to get something in there, and, but. it's-
When are they trying to open?
You know, I'm not sure what their timeline is on that exactly. I think the planning commission looked at this last month, or this month. I think they looked at it this month, for site plan approval. They have to come back, they have you know, they had to work something out on the outdoor storage has to be screened for the outdoor boat storage, so they're coming up with a screening material that's gonna be architecturally compatible with the building is one of the requirements, but I think, I'm sure they're gonna wanna, you know, move forward with it pretty quickly.
And then just on the suggested trees for the eastern red cedars, could they not use the cedars that we're approving?
They could, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I think as part of your motion, you could say, any shade tree on our preferred list, or either
Okay.
the southern magnolia or the other cedar that they're proposing would be fine.
That's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Stowe?
I pass.
Alderman Pinchuk, anything else?
I pass.
Mr. Wright?
No questions?
Ms. Leilani?
No comment.
All right, sounds like we've done a pretty good job asking questions. So with that, do we have a motion? And with the motion, please remember the subject twos down here.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to qualifying the 3 eastern red cedars was something possibly from the plan already there, and relocating the 1 cedar that's more than 50 feet from the improved surface.
Just as a point of clarification, are you also adding into your motion the approval of the 2 trees that are not on our list?
Yes, the magnolia and the cedar.
The deodar, or whatever it's
Yeah.
pronounced, cedar.
That one.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. I hope that covers everything.
I've
All
got
right.
it.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right, we got a second. Would you please call the vote?
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Chairman Lehman,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe,
Yes.
and Mr. Wright.
Yes.
All right, that's the last item on the agenda. Is there anything else staff has for us before we adjourn?
Just a quick note, next month is your annual meeting, so you'll have to elect officers and stuff. And we might want to, at a meeting, shortly after that, maybe September, October, look at potentially making some changes to your bylaws. I know we brought up the idea of whether or not, you might want to meet earlier. I think the Board of Mayor and Aldermen are going to start meeting at 6. The Planning Commission's going to say it's 7. That, if the board wanted to meet at 6, that's something we'd have to change the bylaws on. Also, the fact that your annual meeting is August instead of July is, the town's fiscal year starts in July. The appointments are made, and typically the new members' first meetings are in July. So I'm not really sure why the board was originally set up with its annual meeting in August, but that's something you might want to make a change to as well, and kick it, move it to July, so you've got a full year on the elections and everything. But, so depending on what you might want to do for times, and whether or not you want to potentially change the annual meeting from August to July, that, it's something, we could look at and discuss all at once, and then potentially amend the bylaws to align them with whatever you all want to do in terms of those issues.
Yeah, good point. And we had a brief discussion last meeting. Not everyone was here about the fact that a lot of the committees and boards have looked at the time, and some have made adjustments. And I think we left it, think about it. We'll put it on a future agenda item to see if we want to do that. So
Yeah.
that's just something that needs to be added, I guess, discussion about those things.
I might add, some of the things that some of the other committees are discussing is the number of members on the committee, the number of students. Museum's gone from 1 student to 3. Start times, I mean, there's several different things that committees are looking at, so, think outside the box if we need to change anything, and you need to discuss it.
Okay. So that'll be on a future agenda then.
Yeah, I was thinking at the next meeting, with it being the annual meeting, we can, go ahead and elect officers for the year, and then schedule, a discussion of the bylaws and any changes you might want to make for a subsequent meeting sometime. And, I can get you the existing bylaws, I can get copies to everyone, and you know, we can get that out in advance. And that way, if a member's not able to be here, they could, if they had a preference on time or something, they could let you all know so that, you weren't changing a time to something that, one of the existing board members couldn't make. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. So with that, meeting adjourned. See you guys next month.
Happens after sitting for a while, I get that way too.
That he's talking about.
So I guess it was here.
Computer easier to use. Cancel.